be as honest as possible with Detroit. I went in kind of expecting a rough city. Stop 23 here, I suppose. But Detroit is kind of seen as a symbol of American decline. And I watched, Anthony Bourdain famously compared Detroit to the ruins of Greece or the Roman Forum. In that way, sort of serving as a symbol of the decline of a once great civilization, that being the United States. I walked away so baffled that I ended up reading a book about it, about Detroit, and that's mostly what this video will focus on, is that book. And most of the city is abandoned. Most of the city lives in poverty. That said, at this point, I think it's wrong of me and cliche and somewhat stupid to just come into town for a day, make broad negative conclusions about Detroit after spending literally hardly any time there. And then, so rather than give you my take, I'll give you the take of Charlie LeDuff, who is a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist from Detroit. He's one of my favorite people and the author of the book I read on Detroit. These are his quotes on Detroit. And it is awful here. There is no other way to say it, but I believe that Detroit is America's city. It was the vanguard of our way up, just as it is the vanguard of our way down. And one hopes the vanguard of our way up again. Detroit is Pax Americana, the birthplace of mass production, the automobile, the cement road, the refrigerator, frozen peas, high-paid blue-collar jobs, home ownership, and credit on a mass scale. America's way of life was built here. It's where installment purchasing on large scale was invented by General Motors in 1919. It was called the Arsenal of Democracy in the 1940s, the place where the war machines were made to stop the march of fascism. So important was the Detroit way of doing things, that it was automobile executives in the 50s and 60s who went to Washington and imprinted the military with their management style and structure. If what Wilson said is true, then so too must be the opposite. What was good for our country was good for General Motors, and vice versa. Today, the boomtown is bust. It is an eerie and angry place of deserted factories and homes and forgotten people. Detroit, which once led the nation in home ownership, is now a foreclosure capital. Its downtown is a museum of ghost skyscrapers. Trees and switchgrass and wild animals have come back to reclaim their rightful places. Coyotes are here. The pigeons have left in droves. Detroit reached a peak population of nearly 1.9 million people in the 1950s. Now Detroit has fewer than 700,000. Once the nation's richest big city, Detroit is now its poorest. It is the country's illiteracy and dropout capital, where children must leave their books at school and bring toilet paper from home. It's the unemployment capital, where half the adult population does not have a consistent job. There are firemen with no boots, cops with no cars, teachers with no pencils, city council members with telephones tapped by the FBI, and too many grandmothers with no tears left to give. But Detroit can no longer be ignored, because what happened here is happening out there. Neighborhoods from Phoenix to Los Angeles to Miami are blighted with empty houses and people with idle hands. Americans are swimming in debt, and the prospects of servicing the debt grow slimmer by the day as good-paying jobs continue to evaporate or relocate to foreign lands. Economists talk about the inevitable turnaround, but standing here in Michigan, it seems to me that the fundamentals are no longer there to make the good life. Go ahead and laugh at Detroit, because you're laughing at yourself. So that's LeDuff's rosy take, and I think it's pretty accurate. I personally went to Detroit to tour the Ford factory, which I'm showing you now, where they make the Ford F-150. It's pretty cool to visit and tour. But at the same time, I don't think I walk away with the Ford factory tour so much as the Detroit City tour. It is, it's everything that LeDuff just said. It's a story of the United States' rise after World War II as an industrial power, and then the loss of our manufacturing base, and a bursting of a credit bubble, I suppose, of people who were unable to pay off their debts. Once the jobs were gone, and then also an increase in foreign competition and an increasingly global market and all sorts of other things. So Detroit's not necessarily a happy story, but that said, I think lessons can be learned from it, especially the power of economics. If you want to look up a pretty powerful image, why don't you type in Hiroshima in 1945, Detroit 1945, and then type in Hiroshima 2015 and Detroit 2015, and I think those images alone will show you that economics are probably, I think they are, they're the most powerful, it is the most powerful force shaping human existence on the planet. That's why it's important to study economics, and you should take that class since it is available to most of you. So yeah, that was Detroit. The question for this round is in the bubble above. It's a story that Charlie LaDuff did for a local news station. I just want you to watch it and give me your reaction. So there's no real question, I just want your reaction to the video.